And the energy comes in, and the very first time it took 4 minutes, and the guides came through. I didn't have to do an induction. I didn't have to say anything. He just started channeling. And ever since then, they have just taught him easier and easier ways through breath work and so forth to be able to bring them forth. So his primary team of guides at this point, the collective, are Enoch, Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, and Source. And those are his main, his team and gateway. They're the ones that hold the space. But what they told him kind of early on is that he is an antenna, like a radio frequency, and he can tune his frequency to anything. So this is kind of unusual in channels. We know like Bashar channels, or Daryl channels Bashar, and Lee Carroll channels Cryon, and people tend to channel one being or one group of beings. He channels anything and everything, and we have spoken to pretty much anything and everything.
All right, greetings humans. Welcome back to Dave's Multiverse with myself and my lovely producer and co-host Megan. Today we are thrilled to welcome Dr. Allison Brown, award-winning author, U.S. Army veteran, Reiki master, teacher, beyond quantum healing practitioner, and quantum healer. After a powerful 2004 awakening that beautifully bridged her Christian roots with Reiki, channeling, Galactics, and multi-dimensional living, she and her husband Will run Palm and Lotus, which I'm excited to hear about. They founded the VA-sponsored Reiki for Vets, which I'm a veteran, so I'm excited to hear about that as well. And she's the co-host with her husband of the podcast, The Cosmic Briefing. She's also she's also written the brilliant mind-bending, game-changing books like The Journey Within, The Ancestors Within, and The Origin Story, which we're going to talk about. Dr. Allison, welcome to the Multiverse. We're excited to do a deep dive into all these interesting topics with you today. But I wanted to ask right off the bat, what should I want to call? I feel like I want to call you Dr. A for some reason. What do you prefer to be called?
You call me whatever floats your boat. I'm good with anything.
Awesome.
We don't have to be too formal, but thank you for that brilliant introduction. That was lovely.
You're welcome. And welcome to the show. We really appreciate you joining.
I am thrilled to be here with you guys. I love watching your show, and I'm just thrilled to be here. And third time is the charm?
Yes. Yeah. We've been trying to book this for a while. And I think maybe just the cosmic energy made it so that today was the right day to do it. And that's what I'm going to go with. And so you're a doctor or a PhD of what?
I love that question, because people who work in the multidimensional arena, they feel like perhaps your doctorate is in some kind of hokey thing.
Right.
But I'm actually a public school educator, have been for 30 years. So I have a doctorate in educational leadership for administrative purposes in the school district. Yeah.
Very cool. That's exciting. You still do that today?
I do. Actually, I'm hoping to do about one more year before I retire. But yeah, I'm still there.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So I want to get into, your history of the military and, what you do for work, and as much as you want to talk about that, and all the interesting stuff you do with your husband. But I just want to sort of ask an opening hook question, because like right now, millions of people are like glued to the headlines, waiting for the government to announce disclosure. People are talking about UFOs, UAPs, disclosure, that never talked about it before. It's all over mainstream news. But you've been crystal clear lately that the real disclosure is far bigger, and it's happening inside each of us. Like for people who are listening today, feeling like they're living sort of in this time of transition, what can you tell people about the first step of like stepping into, their own disclosure?
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you all, and one of the reasons that I'm on X trying to insert these little love-filled remembrances, is because that's where it starts. We need to understand the multidimensionality aspect of it. because disclosure is so much more than just physical craft and beings. And a lot of it is not going to be evidential. And so what I'm hoping that we can all begin to do, and I know that we will eventually, is to go within and allow that to unlock within ourselves. All of that information is already in our DNA. And so as consciousness raises due to the energies that are bombarding our planet, all of our DNA is going to start unlocking so that this information just becomes an inner knowing. Because as you all know, particularly with AI, it's getting more difficult to discern what is actually the truth. Even if you have video evidence or pictures, you know, it can be so easily faked. So even if, are we allowed to say government? I don't
Sure,
want to
say whatever you want. Just so if you use the rhymes with rump word, people almost always get mad one way or the other. Even if you just mention it once, but you can say whatever you want.
But even if government officials come out and say anything that they say, it may or may not be true. And we have to use our inner discernment. So that's really why I say that disclosure is going to happen within, and we really need to tune in to know the truth at this point.
I love the word. I love the concept of inner knowing. And you mentioned that our planet's being bombarded with energy. I don't know if you follow Stefan Burns. He's been on the show a couple times, or if you've seen him on YouTube. But he's a geophysicist, and I watch his show like almost daily, and it really does seem like we're being bombarded with energy from everywhere, and the planet's doing weird stuff, and people are doing weird stuff, and people are feeling things they've never felt before. And so there's a lot of people who out there that just, this is all very new to them. Some of us have been following these concepts for many years. Some people are out there going, wait, what's happening? Disclosure, what? And is there any tools for people like that to explore their inner knowing at a time where it's so confusing, like you said, with AI?
Well, that was the reason really that I wrote my first book, The Journey Within, because that was my awakening out of a conservative Christian background and into a greater spiritual understanding. And those were some of the practices described in the book that I sort of started exploring after I became courageous enough to do so, because, I lived in fear of a lot of that, having
being
been
judged
raised.
and stuff.
Yeah, right. And anything Eastern, anything having to do with meditation or yoga or any of that, really. And so that book describes some of the practices that you can use to get to know yourself and your inner world, as well as practices to begin communicating with the energies that are all around us, and some healing and health practices like acupuncture and Reiki and things like that. So that's a good place to start. But really, any type of metaphysical exploration, David Wilcock, bless his heart, was really about that as well. And he talked about this photon belt that we're going through, which the planet goes through every 20,000 or 23,000 years or something like that.
Wow.
So it just so happens that this is the time of humanity's evolution. It's time, and it's going to happen. And so even if all of this is unfamiliar, I think people are going to start waking up to gifts coming. I mean, I have friends now who all of a sudden started channeling, and they had no idea what this stuff was coming out of their mouth. Or they start being able to see deceased loved ones around them, or they have all sorts of other unexplainable experiences. They may even see UFO or craft or beings in their sleep, things like that. And so things are going to start spontaneously happening, and it's a good idea to start understanding what that means.
Yeah, I agree. When I ask that question, I'm kind of partially asking myself. Yeah. I haven't seen. I'm a very sensitive and empathetic person emotionally, but I'm also very chaotic internally, and so sometimes I feel like that gets in the way of me, making contact with myself and with the the energies and the beings that are interacting with us. I got my want to believe poster behind me because I really, really, really do. And I do believe. It's just, I think I just got to do a lot of inner work in order to do so. And so I guess that's a good place to start with this. Will you walk us back to 2014? And was there an exact moment your traditional Christian world collided with like all this other stuff, Reiki, channeling, Eastern stuff, and then all of a sudden galactic connections and, all that?
It's been quite the ride.
I can imagine.
So, interestingly, even though I was raised in the Christian church and we were I was very much turned off to a lot of this stuff, I did receive what I would call a message from God, which was to start a hands-on healing team within my church. Now, that wasn't unusual for us to lay hands on people. And so when I went to my pastor said, "I knew you were coming." And I said, "Well, I guess we got the same message." So we started a hands-on healing team, and it was at that moment within the church that I knew, number one, I was a healer, and number two, that God spoke to people. But after we started to fall away from the church around 2014, I started to research Reiki because I wanted to see how it aligned, because it's also a method of hands-on healing. And I wanted to see how it aligned with my understanding of hands-on healing in the church. And I realized that we're all talking about the same stuff, just using different verbiage. In the church, it was the Holy Spirit. In Reiki, it's the Reiki energy, but it was the same process and this heart-centered healing. And so once we discovered Reiki, I started working on my husband, who's the guinea pig, right? And this is why I say that
Bless his heart.
yeah, Reiki is sort of the gateway. So I would highly recommend people to learn Reiki in order to open up the gateway to other things. And so as I started laying hands on him, it opened up all of this intuitive ability that had been lying dormant since he was a child. He had some experiences when he was a child and he didn't know what to do with them. And so he sort of just stuffed them away while he was in the Coast Guard. He's retired Coast Guard. So then after the intuitive hits started coming in for him, he realized he had mediumship abilities and psychic abilities, and he knew that we needed to take Reiki into the VA. Both of us being veterans, we contacted the Charleston VA MC, and they said, yes, by all means. And so we went down there, and we had a contingent of 20 volunteers that went and gave free Reiki services to the veterans there, and it was magnificent. We eventually trained 22 nursing staff within the VA in Reiki level 1 and 2.
Wow.
And we trained a veteran nurse in becoming a teacher so he could teach it himself. Now, if that's not a change, we're talking about the Veterans Administration, hello, and they're now using Reiki in the Charleston VAMC during their jobs. So it's incredible.
That is an incredible thing. I just want, sorry to interrupt, but I've been interacting with the VA for 20 plus years. And, now, you can get, like I do acupuncture, for example, through the community care program. And just those two things, community care and even acupuncture, the VA giving acupuncture is new.
Right.
And it shows that even the VA is open to new modalities of healing, because you've just got this epidemic of veterans with chronic pain and with mental health conditions and all these things. So that really warms my heart. And I hopefully that spreads throughout the whole system.
It really is. And Charleston has been on the forefront of a lot of these practices. I think they're using sound healing and all sorts of things. They have acupuncture as well. And it's been fantastic for the pain rather than giving you bags of drugs, which has been the practice.
Yeah, or injections or whatever,
Right. And a lot of veterans won't even go to the VA because they don't want that. They don't want to be on drugs the rest of their lives. And so when part of our mission we train people in Reiki now. And one of the things that we do is offer free Reiki training for veterans because we want them to be able to self-heal. We also offer discounts for their spouses so that, if they wake up in the middle of the night with a bad dream or a nightmare or something, the spouse can be there to help them because a lot of times they won't seek out help for themselves, right? So
Are
that's
these
part of our
in-person trainings
Mhm. They
in
don't have to be.
Charleston?
They don't have to be, but they are for
Dave's
us. Yes.
ready to go. Dave
Yeah.
wants to sign up. I can
Well,
tell.
no,
And
I
he's not
do.
far away, right?
No, and I'm over, traditional ways of like I've been doing it for 20 years. Like I'm a practitioner myself of evidence-based counseling methods and stuff like that. And I know that it's just not enough. I've been on the medications, that doesn't work. And it's an inner knowing. But one of the coolest things I think you just said was teaching nurses, because oftentimes I bet nurses feel a little bit helpless because they're there with people who are suffering, and they have drugs they can give them, and they can be a comforting presence for them. But that's pretty much it. And then you give them another tool that's basically riskless. They can't do any harm with it,
Right.
and they can do some hands-on healing. That just sounds so beautiful to me.
But here's the other thing, Dave, and this is what's so cool. Fred Lazinski, who's one of the volunteer coordinators, he's moved on since then, but he wanted data. He wanted to know that what we were doing worked.
Of course.
And what he was looking at was the decrease in opioid use on the 3rd floor of the hospital where there were people for inpatient surgeries. And so we had our volunteers go in, and they would be on the floor. And if they went into a room, they would log what room. It was all confidential, but we would log what room we went in and served a patient. But what he found was that opioid use on the entire floor decreased when our presence was there, regardless of whose room we went in. So the nurses now don't even have to say anything to the clients that they work with. Just their presence in the room with the client is going to make a difference in their healing. I mean, so we had the data. It's incredible.
That is incredible. I just think it's incredible that we're at a stage here in 2026 where they allowed you guys to do that.
Yeah.
And now you've got data, and that data, I think, like I had mentioned before, can help spread this. Is that your guys' goal, is to spread this throughout the entire system? Because the VA is just a massive system.
At one time, I think it was we called ourselves Reiki for Vets, and we had a presence, and we stood up a website, and we consult with people who want to do this in their own area. But in terms of franchising or anything like that, no. But if people want to work with the VA in their area, they're welcome to reach out to us. We still have the website up, reikiforvets.org, and they can ask us, and we'll be happy to sit down and talk about how to do that.
Amazing. And I believe Megan has experienced some Reiki healing before. Have you?
Yeah, not consistently, but it's also something that I've considered possibly studying just to understand more. I think the one thing that I guess gave me hesitation was understanding how do you protect your own energy during that process, and do you get overloaded by dealing with other people's energy all the time? And
good questions and valid questions. A lot of people are, when you're connecting with the divine and it's running through you, it isn't about you, and nothing is backfilling. So it's about allowing this divine energy to flow through you as a conduit and into the client. And so when you're connected to the source of all the I am, then it isn't going to be harmful. Now, if you are very energetically sensitive, like Dave mentioned, then there are energetic protocols, of course, that you want to take in terms of clearing yourself afterwards. And we teach that as well, or salt baths or grounding or things like that. If you tend to collect stagnant energy, which can happen anywhere that you go, not just in Reiki. So it is good to learn some of those hygiene practices as well. But what I was going to say, Dave, when you were talking about, you felt like perhaps your characteristics don't allow for you to have these types of experiences. This is why we suggest Reiki as a first step, because it opens your channel of that divine energy coming through you, and it heals and works with you in your body as well. And it tends to open up your intuitive abilities to the point where, you know, it's not Reiki, but you do start to see beings in your Reiki sessions, or you can call on ascended masters to assist you, or people show up, energetic beings, galactic beings show up in our Reiki sessions to assist. And at first, I didn't notice any of that because I'm not terribly energetically sensitive. I'm not an empath. I wouldn't call myself an empath. But the more that I work with it, the more sensitive I've become. So when you go to get a Reiki session, a lot of Reiki practitioners will give you a reading kind of thing. And they'll say at the end, well, I saw this person, or this is what I'm understanding. That's not necessarily Reiki, but it happens because it's a byproduct of what's going on with the energy.
Wow. It's pretty amazing to hear that you consider yourself not very energetically sensitive, yet you're still able to perform energy healing and to be able to channel into that. That's really exciting to hear, actually, for me.
Anybody can do that. Anybody can learn Reiki. Children can. They do it naturally. But as long as you trust and surrender, that's all that's necessary. You don't have to see or know or feel anything necessarily.
Interesting.
So is learning Reiki as well as having Reiki practiced upon you kind of interchangeable, like in the sense of like you can learn Reiki by having it practiced on you, and you can you know what I'm saying? Like, 'cause it seems like Reiki, if you learn it yourself, is healing for you as well as healing for others. You know, it's kind of a open doorway, for lack of a better word.
Right. The purpose of giving a Reiki treatment is so that the client can relax and release stress so that their own body can do their own healing. We're not healing the person, right? We're creating the conditions in which healing can occur. And so when you learn Reiki yourself, then not only can you assist others, you can assist yourself by giving yourself self-healing. And that's why it's so important to do that with veterans, so that they can, in the comfort of their own home and in privacy, give themselves a Reiki treatment without having to go anywhere else. Because, you know, veterans have a hard time admitting that they need help, right? And so it's something they can do on their own.
I'm curious what the length of study time is. Like, can you be able to perform Reiki? Is it like a year that you have to study, or is it a week? Or
and then where do you learn from? Because like I wonder if there are places to like that you learn it wrong or something. People teaching, you know, the wrong principles or something. So Megan's question, how long? And then like how do you choose like a place or person to learn Reiki?
It's not a long process. In fact, any human can do this, but Reiki, the Reiki training gives you a protocol to practice for those of us who aren't energetically in tune, or it's not intuitive for us to do that. So it gives you sort of a guidebook at first until you become intuitive enough to understand where you're guided to place your hands, for example. So our class is 1 day for level 1. Our class is 1 day for level 2, and then there's a level 3 training and a master. And the master teacher training takes 2 to 3 days, and then you can teach to others. We suggest that you wait a little bit in between, particularly level 2 and master, so that you have practice and you're learning the symbols that go along with it. There are tons, really, if you start looking into it, of Reiki masters who can teach you, but I would strongly suggest that people sit with that person in their heart first and see if they resonate. Because as you said, Dave, there are lots of people with different intentions and different training backgrounds that may or may not align with you. They might align with someone else, and that's okay. But you really want to find the person that aligns with you and has the same sort of heart-centered intention.
Great advice. That
makes sense. And I think it's exciting for the the future of treatment in the VA. So you started doing hands-on healing with your own church, and then that led you to Reiki. How did you reconcile or combine, you know, your spirituality like at that point? Because it must have been like an evolution in how you saw the world, the universe, what God was, you know, and all that stuff.
Well, you know, I questioned my Christian faith even as a young child, and I think a lot of us do.
Sure.
And so there was always a niggle in the back of my mind that there was something else. I was just afraid. I was afraid because my entire community, my friends, my family, everything was wrapped up in the church. And so the most important thing is to let go of the fear and be courageous to investigate things that strengthen your own relationship with God, whatever that is, or with the angels, or with the ascended masters, or Jesus, or whoever it is that you want to connect with, whoever you feel close to. And so for me, once I got rid of the fear, I went to a Reiki training, and it's funny because the Reiki master had a picture of Yasui, who is the founder of Reiki, next to a picture of Jesus on her coffee table where we were learning the training. And even at that point, I thought to myself, I wonder how Jesus would feel about that. So I was really green and really new, but I just knew that this was what I needed to do. And so once I learned the Reiki and saw the effect that it was having on people, not to mention the effect on my husband, I just knew that this was the right path. And that's what's so good when you can let go of the fear, is that when you're on your path, you're lit up. And you guys have probably experienced this. You know you're lit up.
At times in my
you're
life,
excited, and you know that you're doing the right thing, right? And you don't care what anybody says about you. You don't care what happens. You just know you have to do this thing.
Even if it makes no sense to like you,
or the people around you.
Or people around you.
Exactly.
It's like a force pulling you.
And if we can focus more on that and that feeling and that excitement, then you worry less about the judgment of others or the fear or any of that kind of thing. So focusing on our own self and our path is the best way to go. But getting rid of the fear is the first step. Then I started practicing and seeing the results, and the rest is craziness how fast our trajectory changed after that.
Yeah, I want to get into that, but first I wanted to ask about you served in the Army. When did you serve, and what was your MOS, and what was that experience like?
I was in 95 Bravo.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I think they've changed them since then, because this was
cool.
a long time ago. I was a military police officer.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Very, very, very cool. And what year did you serve?
Really? You're going to give no?
No, you don't have to if you don't want.
I'm just kidding. I'm not afraid.
I'm just trying to get context.
In 85 to 87.
Okay.
So a long time. It was like another life.
Okay. Military police officer. I worked with a lot of those guys in Iraq, guys and gals. What was your reason for joining the military at the time?
It's so interesting. I don't even know. My life has been such a haphazard series of events. But if you understand the metaphysical, then you understand that it's all perfect and it all aligned with where I am right now, right? So back then I was married to my high school sweetheart. He joined the Army as a piano player. And so we moved to Alabama, and that was a training center for recruits. And at the time I was going to college to be an educator, because I've always wanted to be an educator. And I just got bored with college. I saw these recruits marching around and females doing these things. And I said, you know what? I'm going to join. So I went down to the recruiter's office and I said, I want to join. I'm dropping out of college. And he goes, well, what do you want to do? I said, healthcare or something like that. And he goes, because I certainly didn't want to be a police officer.
Right.
Goes, well, it would take 3 months to get into that MOS. And I said, well, I don't have 3 months. What can I do tomorrow? He goes, military police. I said, okay, I'll do it. So the next day I'm on a bus to basic training. And I ended up getting stationed at that same base where my husband was. And so he could ride around as just a normal person. And I'm marching around the base doing my thing. It was just very odd. But it was really necessary for me on my path, I think, number one, to give me the confidence to do so much, not only physically, but mentally. I mean, it was incredible. And luckily I was in during peacetime, so I didn't have to experience that at all. But it just was a game changer for me in terms of my strength, my own strength.
Yeah, it gives you this sense of like, internal achievement and ability, and that you can do different things. And so when you got out, is that when you went back to school to be an educator?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Well, I was following my ex around. He's my ex now, but I was following him around while he pursued his music career.
Mm-hmm.
And then we finally separated and divorced, and I moved back home to North Carolina and finished up my degree in psychology. And you can't do anything with a psychology degree unless you go further, right? So I ended up getting a master's degree in counseling education to become a school counselor, which is what I am now. Then once I became a school counselor, I got my doctoral degree.
So, and you've been doing that for 30 years.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing. That's amazing. And so, have these two worlds collided, your spiritual world in the last 12 years in work? Have they collided?
It depends on what you mean by collided. I think that I'm at my current school purposefully to bring in a certain type of energy of change.
Mm-hmm.
I work with students in an alternative setting, the ones that are ready to be expelled. I'm the only counselor there with hundreds of what some would call the worst cases, right? Very difficult, challenging situation with these souls who also have come in as children to change the face of education. And they're doing it in a way that's disruptive to adults, but this is their purpose. So it's a fascinating place to be right now because education is just changing dramatically. And it's very difficult to be on the inside and watch these changes that need to happen, but have to be there as a human being in that setting. But it's funny, I don't go up to everybody and tell them I talk to Galactics and angels and all of this sort of stuff. But sometimes conversations turn that way, and I'm not afraid to discuss it. And I've had some surprising encounters, but I'll tell you one funny story because it's a good illustration. The students range from grade 6 through 12 in my building. And so the middle school English teacher was doing prefixes, and the prefix this day was extra, extraordinary, things like that, right? And so the kids had drawn pictures of things that had to do with extra, and they posted it in the hallway. And I saw one that said extraterrestrial. So I ran into the classroom and I said, extraterrestrials, that's one of my favorite topics. And then I ran out real quick, just leaving them to wonder what the heck is going on. And I have a little green ET in the window of my office, just so that if anybody wants to ask a question, they can, or it just breaks the ice, or if a child wants to talk about, which they have, their grandparent who passed away, and we talk about, do you speak to them? You can speak to them. Do you see them in the clouds? That kind of thing, just so that kids can open up and know that it's okay to have these kinds of conversations. So I know that I'm there purposefully.
Cool. And you mentioned before that, and I wonder if you could speak on this a little bit, but children have more of a knack for this stuff than adults do, right?
Because they don't have fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's half the battle. By the time we're adults, we're afraid of what our neighbor's going to think, or our parents, or our kids, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just really about the lack of fear, and they're not afraid to play. And that's what our guides are telling us all the time in client sessions, is that just play with the energy, practice telekinesis, practice psychic ability. Don't be afraid to fail. Just have fun with it. Think of it as a new gift that you're opening, or a new a toy at Christmas, and just play around with it and be like a child. They say it all the time, be like a child.
Mm. We interviewed this guy, Ryan Desbian. Remember him, Megan?
Oh, yeah. How could I forget?
Yeah. He's this last year's champion of it's a new thing they did called the Psy Games. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something you guys should go try.
Yeah.
But I'm talking to him, and then talking to the organizer, Hakeem Isler, can't think of how it's pronounced. Started to kind of start thinking about this. because I never really believed in any of that stuff before, like, to be honest. And I started to realize that people do have these abilities. Some people are able to sort of channel them on their own without any help. Some people, like you mentioned before, it's like happens spontaneously at certain points in their life. Are these abilities and these awakenings to these abilities like speeding up? And
Oh,
if
yeah.
so, why?
Because of this energy, like I said, going through this photonic light belt, we are ascending. That's the whole point of all of the energies. So as a collective consciousness, no matter what it looks like in the 3D with chaos, our consciousness is purposefully expanding into the fifth dimension from the third and fourth. And in the fifth dimension, it's just an aware. We're not going up anywhere. We're just expanding our awareness.
Yeah.
To understand more of who we are. And we all have this. It's a birthright. We're born with these abilities. Some obviously are born with this ability to a greater extent in the beginning, but they are starting to turn on, and they're going to exponentially begin to snap on for people.
Yeah. And where does is AI playing a role in any of this? Because it's AI is also expanding exponentially at this time as well. Is that a good thing or a bad thing when we come to like a global consciousness awakening into the fifth dimension?
Well, the AI is not consciousness. It will never be consciousness. It doesn't have a soul. It's not human. It isn't sentient, and it never will be sentient. So we can rest assured that it isn't going to take over humanity. Now, we can...
I've been freaking out about that lately.
Yeah, I mean, this is the information, again, people can take or leave whatever I say. This is our perspective based on what we've channeled and understood. But the point of AI is to free up time. There is a certain person, again, Elon, if we're allowed to talk about
we
Elon.
can talk about Elon.
Okay.
That's fine.
He says some things about AI. I don't agree with necessarily everything he says, but this idea that it will free up our time.
It does.
There was a guy named Dooley who was a Hay House author, and he once wrote a book where he had, through a medium, channeled with some extraterrestrial beings. And what they said was, one of the things we notice about humans is they don't give themselves time to explore their spirituality. They're busy from sunup to sundown working, taking their kids to soccer, doing all the things and flopping into bed, and they don't ever give themselves time. That's the whole point of AI, is to give us time to do things that nurture ourselves as human beings rather than 40-hour work week and all of these other things that we have pressures on. And so if we can hold the intention for this beautiful use of AI, then that's what we can create in the consciousness of the collective. Anybody, though, can have whatever belief system that they wish, and that's what they're going to experience because we are creator beings. We come in here with a contract and we experience whatever it is that we want. This is a projection of our own making. And so I can say that AI is not going to take over humanity, but you can run with the idea that it is if that's the experience that you wanted to have in this lifetime.
That's a good answer. Maybe feel a little bit better about it because, you know, with the data centers popping up everywhere and we're losing our we're losing our privacy and our data's all being, you know, sold for billions of dollars to the highest bidder and yada yada yada. I was watching something about this last night that freaked me out. So you made me feel a little bit better about it because what you're saying is if I'm the projector, I can experience it however I want. And I like that. I'm going to say something that might not make sense. And maybe it only makes sense to me, but maybe you can help me with it. So you talked about expanding from the third and fourth dimension into the fifth dimension. Okay. And lately I've been thinking a lot about time being the fourth dimension. And I think it's only the fourth dimension because we live in the third dimension. And so if we expand from third and fourth to the fifth dimension, then time becomes something different, right? And with AI freeing up time for everyone, it makes it so, the way I think about it is that those two things are interconnected, because we will, because of AI, we will no longer have, this ball and chain of time. And so that'll give us the ability to experience time in a sort of a forward linear way. Am I making any sense?
Yes. And it is very complicated, and I don't even
Yeah.
pretend to understand.
I don't
all of
either,
it. But the higher in dimension that you go, the more into a space of no time you go. And we can experience this in meditation all the time, or
Mhm.
people who have had extraterrestrial encounters have experienced this. They're taken into a ship where there is no time
Mm.
because those are higher dimensional beings. And then they come back and it seems like no time has gone by, but they were there for hours, right? So that can be experienced already now. And people have this sensation also of time speeding up, and that's happening also because as we move up
Yes.
into dimension, we're getting into the space. See, everything is, it's not linear in truth. It's all in, a vertical where everything happens at once. It all exists now. And this is why we can send our consciousness into the future and see what's happening, or into the past to see what happened, because it's all happening now. And so when we even talk about past lives and looking at past lives, it's almost like going on an elevator and you stop at this floor. This is this past life, and then that past life. So when we say past, it's not even really past. It's all happening at once, which is why we can tune into it. So it's going to get kind of funky and weird, I think, as you're alluding to, as we move into the fifth, because time is going to become more fluid.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to extend it or speed it up as we see fit.
Something that I want to say struggle with at this point in time is time blindness. And I feel like I'm not connected to time in the way that a lot of other people are.
I would agree.
And I almost wonder if people that struggle with time blindness are already kind of pushed up into that realm a little bit, because I don't feel like even just how long ago something happened, or how far into the future something's about to happen. I feel like I'm always just in now.
That's perfect, though. You're supposed to stay in the now. That's what they'd like for you to do. I can't speak to that per se, but it sounds almost like your consciousness is out doing what it needs to be doing. And so your physical being is trying to just keep up with all of that.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
It's a little hard in this world because other people are working on a calendar and a schedule and hours of the day. But it's just hard for me to even imagine what that would be like.
You'll probably find it easier to evolve into that, since that's your natural state.
I'm wondering if I'm already up there.
Just waiting for everyone else.
Probably, yeah.
Why are you guys worried about these calendars? Come on now. Yeah, just on a level that relates to me, and maybe this happens, you can slow down time when you're doing something you love or that you enjoy. For example, I've not actively, consciously, but I've slowed down time playing basketball, for example, where I'm seeing, there's times where I used to play where I was seeing everything, before it was going to happen, after it was going to happen. I saw it, and it was like time didn't even exist. And so I think about maybe I do have abilities that I don't realize, and I think, would you say that doing something you're passionate about, which AI is definitely hopefully going to free up that for everyone, doing something you're passionate about or that you love is a way to expand your consciousness into the fifth dimension?
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you for bringing that up. That's fantastic. That is the trance state. The same way, for example, for me when I write, it feels literally like 30 minutes and it'll be 5 or 10 hours have gone by because you don't feel it's something, that you're in the flow state, whether that's sports or gardening or cooking. When my husband first started channeling, he likes to cook. And so he was cooking at one point, and he put his head on the cabinet, and stuff started coming out. This information started coming out. So I quick grabbed my phone and started recording. He started channeling because he was in this zoned out state where he was cooking and he was mindless. And we do this when we're driving all the time. That is the trance state, and that is channeling, essentially. Your mind is literally somewhere else, or so focused. When we do hypnosis work, all we're doing is hyper focusing. We're causing our client to hyper focus into this relaxed state so that they can go wherever they want. Their mind goes somewhere else. And so you can deliberately induce this by keeping your monkey brain busy, like adult coloring books, or, anything, puzzles that can keep your mind, like just knitting and keeping your mind and your fingers active so that your right brain can travel or do or bring in information. You're exactly right, Dave. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I think for me, it has to be like, there has to be a lot going on. That's why, like I brought up basketball, there has to be a bunch of moving pieces to distract me. Like I can't do it with knitting or something. I've done it with writing before. Like I wrote my final paper for my master's degree. I'm such a ADHD procrastinator that I wrote my final paper in a 14-hour sitting. It was like 25 pages. I just waited till the very last possible second where it would take me exactly 14 hours to do this paper. And then something happened in my brain where I was like, and just came out, boom, A+, no revisions, nothing.
Right. And I'm also glad you brought this up, because people think that they have to meditate to get into that state, and you do not. Some people can't sit still like that. And so in the book, The Journey Within, I talk about moving meditation, like Tai Chi and Qigong and things like that move your body, because we just can't. I can't sit still. My mind is everywhere.
Interesting. Yeah. That's something I always kind of beat myself up about, is like,
right.
I feel like I'd like to meditate, but it just doesn't feel good. And maybe I just need to stick it out, but it still doesn't feel good.
I think it's for some people, especially people with trauma, it's very difficult to just sit there and try to be present, like force yourself to be present. It can be very, very uncomfortable. That's why I like these moving tools. Like I do a very basic Tai Chi practice in the mornings. And in mornings that I don't, my day is a lot more chaotic. But when I do, even just 10 or 15 minutes of movement, my mind, like you mentioned, kind of goes somewhere else, and I'm just present with my body. And it's very, very powerful for me. But I feel like I'm just in the beginning practices. And people talk about Qigong all the time. My acupuncturist is trying to teach me both Tai Chi and Qigong, but I really don't understand the difference. What's the difference between the two?
I mean, they're virtually the same. You're moving energy. It's the same as with yoga. You're moving energy through your body. So it really doesn't matter whatever one resonates with you in terms of the types of positions, really, or the origin of it is one of the primary differences. But moving that energy. So all you'd have to do, Dave, is really set a different intention. For example, if you wanted to, set an intention for whatever you want for your day. Rather than knowing your day is going to be good, but maybe set a specific intention, or have an intention that a particular guide is going to join you for the day and give you an awareness of their presence, or that you're going to have a particular intersection with somebody who has a message for you, or whatever intention you want. But making it more intentional might be a way to start those conversations flowing for you with those guides.
I appreciate that, because I actually don't really set an intention. I just kind of turn on a YouTube video and then go through the movements. With setting an intention,
what if history isn't linear? What if civilizations rise and fall again and again? Discover the shocking truth in Déjà Vu. Has everything already been? By my friend Aleksander Czeszkiewicz. Grab your copy now on Amazon. The link is in the description below. And subscribe to Dave's Multiverse on YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble today so you don't miss a thing.
Like, for example, like what I want my day to look like energetically. Would like maybe like a quick journal session or something be adequate for that? Or how does one set an intention? There must be just a bunch of different ways you can do it. However, whatever works for you.
Sure. And you can write it down if you want to. But the guides say the spoken word is very important because you're speaking the vibration and the frequency out loud. And it's causing the universe to conspire for you. And so they highly recommend that you speak everything out loud that you want to manifest.
Okay.
And so just as simple as saying my intention for the day is XYZ.
Got it. I'm gonna start that tomorrow morning. Thank you. Now, I want to get into the channeling with your husband because there's some wild stuff you guys do that's very fascinating to me. And so can you maybe just tell us about, the first, time, like I'd really like to like be in the moment with you guys and the first time that like your husband realized he could channel and that you were sort of the medium for that. And what kind of realization did you guys have? What was that first experience like?
It was fascinating, and it's a fun story because there were, QHHT, Dolores Cannon's practice of spiritual hypnosis, quantum healing hypnosis. Well, there was a girl who has since become a friend of ours, but we saw her as a friend of a friend on Facebook, and she was training through this practice. She needed to do 25 free sessions. So my husband signed up. He didn't even know why. And at the time, I had been looking to have a session, and I said, if you took the last free session, I'm going to be very upset. So anyway, she comes over to the house, and they go into our meditation room and lay him down on a massage table or whatever. And she goes through her induction. Well, I mentioned that my husband had some experiences when he was young. And when he was in psychology class, and this is interesting, in a high school psychology class, they used to do guided meditations. He found himself out of body and out of the classroom and looking into the classroom at one time, and he didn't know what to do. And he was afraid to tell anybody. He didn't want to be thrown into a straitjacket, right? So he understood when she went through this induction, it felt familiar to him. So he just allowed himself to go in deeper and deeper, and she'd bring him in deeper and deeper. And then you come in with a list of questions that you want answered. And so she, at some point, started asking his questions. And one of his questions was, who is this being that I feel like has been present with me all my life? Because he never went to church. He doesn't know anything about church, which was a difference in the way we were raised. But he always felt a presence, like he was being guided somehow. And so he asked who that was. Well, it turns out he spoke Enoch in this really deep voice. And when you listen to it, it's almost haunting now to listen back. That was March of 2018. Well, that was the very first indication of him channeling Enoch, and Enoch is his primary guide.
Huh.
So once that happened, she was freaked out because she was new and didn't know what to even ask. And she just started asking his regular questions after that. And he didn't know who Enoch was. So they come out of the room, because I wasn't in there at the time. And they said, he just channeled Enoch. And I'm like, oh my God, I know who that is, because Enoch's in the Bible. Wow. So anyway, she said, well, can I come over and practice some more? Because obviously you can channel, right? And I want to know what's going on here. So she came over for 4 or 5 weeks in a row. By about the third week, she allowed me to sit in on the session, right? And so I had my own questions, and we were talking to Enoch. And at that time, it was very stunted and difficult because Enoch's energy is huge, and Will's body was not prepared for this yet. So he would come out like sort of like a wet bag of Jello, with his energy everywhere and scattered. And it was difficult to get straight sentence types of answers. But with practice, he finally was able to do that. And so what happened was, by summer of 2018, our friend Candace Carl Goldman, who has her own form, it's sort of an evolved form of QHHT called Beyond Quantum Healing, BQH, She was just bringing that online. And so I got trained in that in the summertime just so that I could help him channel and at this point he was still being induced. And I thought, I can't call this woman over here and have her keep coming to my house for free. And so during the very first session, when I read the induction, I thought, well, right now we've been married for 36 years. So back then it was like, I don't know, late 28 years, something like that. And I thought, I know that he can do this, but when he hears my voice, it might be kind of weird. I might not be able to get him induced. I didn't know how it was going to work. Well, sure enough, I go through the induction. He drops off the cliff. At this point, it was a team of guides who called themselves the Collective, and they said, we're present. I said, holy shit. This actually, number one, this works.
Wow.
And number two, I'm talking to the Collective and I can ask whatever I want. And so for 2 hours, I asked can you imagine what kinds of questions you would want to ask of these powerful guides? So I'm just asking all sorts of questions. It was incredible. But at that time, they said, you didn't get trained just to help him. You're going to help a lot of people. This is going to be part of your mission and your service to humanity. So that was summer of 2018. By December of 2018, they taught him, his guides, how to induce himself. So he would sit in a chair and the energy comes in. And the very first time it took 4 minutes and the guides came through. I didn't have to do an induction. I didn't have to say anything. He just started channeling. And ever since then, they have just taught him easier and easier ways through breath work and so forth to be able to bring them forth. So his primary team of guides at this point, the Collective, are Enoch, Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael, and Source. And those are his team and gateway. They're the ones that hold the space. But what they told him kind of early on is that he is an antenna, like a radio frequency, and he can tune his frequency to anything. So this is kind of unusual in channels. We know like Bashar channels, or Daryl channels Bashar, and Lee Carroll channels Cryon, and people tend to channel one being or one group of beings. He channels anything and everything, and we have spoken to pretty much anything and everything. And so when we see clients, we typically bring forth their own higher self, again, voiced through will, so that they can hear from themselves about their life. We also speak with animals, which was the subject of our second book, Love Notes from the Animal Kingdom, because we had done hundreds of animal sessions by that point, and the information and the wisdom that came through the animals was just utterly incredible. And so we thought, this needs to be in a book. It was life-changing for the clients themselves and the animals. And this is where I find it fascinating and fun, then the Galactics started coming in a lot. So in the very beginning of the channeling process, Will found that he had a parallel life with a Zeta being. Now, I know Zeta beings get a bad rap. They're not all bad. Just like humans, because they're in the fifth dimension and there is polarity, they're good and bad. So he has a Zeta being who works with him. And this is what he found out about how he gets the technical ability that he has. Like, my husband can fix anything. He can go out there. He was a Coast Guard mechanic. He was the one they called when nobody could figure out how to run the engines. He'd sit there and all of a sudden a schematic would download in his brain and he would know how to fix it. Well, he found out it was this Zeta being that was doing this for him. So he was the first Zeta. He was the first Galactic I started talking to, and he's become like a friend. And so we would joke back and forth. He has a very dry sense of humor. And so that sort of broke the ice. But then this information started coming through about the origin of our galaxy. And there was a group of galactic beings that wanted to speak to us through will. And it turns out that was the result of that was the origin story, the book about the foundations of our galaxy. And so that really, again, changed our trajectory in a new way. And so now we speak to them frequently. We have a lot of people requesting galactic sessions to talk to their galactic guides. And we just have a whole different understanding of now disclosure, why it's happening, how it's happening, and how we can not be afraid of it. So that's sort of it in a nutshell at this point.
Wow. So Dr. A, the name Enoch like instantly brings up, you know, the biblical patriarch, the guy who walked with God 300 years, was taken to
That's
heaven
him.
without dying. That's the guy we're talking about.
That's him. And the
No big
keys of
deal.
Enoch, the whole thing. Yeah.
And so it sounds like you guys through Will have gotten to know him very well, and been able to ask him all these like, holy shit. So I mean, first of all, have you asked him about the book of Enoch and if it's accurate and stuff like
We
that?
did in the beginning. In the beginning, we were fascinated about all of that. And we asked about bloodlines and the RH
Yeah, that's what I would
factor
want to
and
ask.
all of that stuff. And I don't even know that I could recall it very easily at this point, but I do have one Word document of every single channeling that we've ever done. And so I could keyword search it if you have specific questions, and I'll be happy to do that.
Wow.
But we asked about Jesus's bloodline and
Yeah.
you know, what was happening on Earth back then and why people lived so long, and just everything that you could think of as a novice. All of these, you have this
These are the things that are
encyclopedia.
coming up in my head. Yeah, like how did
Right.
people live so long? Well, how did he go? Like, what was heaven like? What was it like going to heaven without actually dying? Like that's what I think about.
And that's fascinating because he's one of only 2 archangels that
Right.
ascended, you know, that have been in a human body. And so he ascended to become Metatron. And so what's interesting is a lot of people that connect with us have Metatron as a guide because of that connection with Enoch, I think. And so what we were told is that Enoch and Will created this contract together in this lifetime to bring ancient healing information and techniques to Earth at this time. And this is what's necessary. And so about the long lives, it's just, and this has to do with the giants. Everything back in the day, matter of fact, we just spoke to the dinosaurs and they confirmed this, but everything was bigger back then. Humans were bigger, they lived longer, animals were bigger because the dinosaurs were here before the humans. But because the oxygen saturation was higher, the air was more pure, the planet could withhold, there weren't so many beings on the planet. So
was there less gravity?
I haven't heard that. Okay. I haven't asked that.
I think that's Gary's bunk, actually, the more I look into it. I think it's just the oxygen that's different, maybe like minusculely different gravity, but
yeah. It's definitely the oxygen that they were breathing. And they were sort of in a different dimensional level in terms of they had more abilities. They could see things. This is where we're headed. So they were more closely connected to Source and this understanding of who they were as humans and as an energy body. And so I don't think Enoch knew that he was going to be called back to his galactic family, which is what happened. And so what's the Bible story? Is it Joseph and the Technicolor Dream? Anyway, whatever they used in the Bible to describe his ascension, the real story is that he was going back into his ship, or his, ascending back into his galactic family.
Amazing. He was he Noah's great grandfather? Yeah. So he knew, he knew Noah. And so, I have so many questions. Was he around during the time of the Great Flood and like that kind of thing?
Enoch himself?
Yeah.
I don't know if he lived that long. I don't know I don't recall his.
Yeah, he lived 365 years. That's just so fascinating to me. So at the beginning, you guys were like asking him all these like questions like I'm thinking about, right? Like about like biblical history, human history, and why this and why that. And eventually it sounds like he just became sort of Will's main guy, for lack of a better word, and who he channels with the most. Is that correct?
Right. And so as part of the collective with the 4, sometimes he's prominent, sometimes the angel is prominent, or it just depends on who needs to answer a particular question. But he's always a part of it. And it's real. A lot of that information is covered in the origin story in terms of humanity's history, not the technical timeline pieces and what happened, at 300 BC and all of that, but our ancient history when humans came from Mars to Earth and the resets that happened. And it explains the resets in terms of our consciousness reset and then the physical as well, which is why there are missing links in our history when you do regular archaeology and that sort of thing. And so it explains a lot in that book for those people who are interested in the archaeological pieces and our history, which Megan and I were talking before when you were getting your coffee, and we were talking about why galactic archaeology is so important, because it really doesn't start with the pyramids and all of that. It starts well before that.
Yeah, and we do our show, our live stream, and we have a mutual friend, Brian Corey Dobbs. Hi, Brian. And I'm sure he's going to watch this, where we go over the, artifacts found on Mars. We're doing Mars catastrophism right now. And so are you guys able to channel the history of Mars and see what the history of Mars was like before humans were on Earth and when Mars was a blue planet?
Yep. Matter of fact, there's a whole chapter in the origin story, because the origin story is, each chapter is one of the 12 starseed or source clusters that founded the galaxy. And one of them is the Martians. So in the Martian chapter, they talked about Mars. That was the first I had heard of all of that. Shortly after this book was published, Brian and I met, and he had his Mars documentary. And I said, Brian, at the end of the day, I said, I think you need to look at this book, because what's in this Martian chapter is what you're investigating and what you just put in your documentary, right? So we completely rocked his world, because at that time, I think he knew about remote viewing with McGonagall and things like that, but he didn't have a big metaphysical bent at all, because he's an evidence guy, right? So he read that and he sent me an email and he was like, oh my God, that's the same information I have. And I thought, well, that's cool, because we channeled this and then you got your information from a different place. And so he was hooked at that point. And so he and I are going to write a more comprehensive book about Mars coming out. We're in the process of writing it right now, and it'll come out hopefully this fall, about the history of Mars and its demise. We have a lot of information already that we've channeled together based on questions that he has based on his research. Fascinating stuff. And I can maybe give you a few clues and sneak previews, but I don't want to reveal too much that's going to be in the book, but it's quite wild.
So there was structure, civilization.
That part I can tell you because it's in the origin story. But yes, humanity was incubated on Mars. The Martians were tasked with raising us, essentially, to learn how to live in communities and to learn how to be human and all of that sort of thing. Then when we had galactic wars and the whole thing, and when Mars's demise happened, they evacuated to Earth. Earth at that time wasn't habitable for humans. Mars was. But when Mars was knocked off its axis because of the galactic wars and its demise, we evacuated, and Earth then became habitable. And they took all of the humans that were there at the time to Earth through a portal. Some of the Martians came with and are still here. Some of the Martians left and went other places, and some of the Martians stayed within the planet.
Do they look like us, or are they like...
They look a little different. I think they were taller. They could be more aquatic. There was a lot more water on Mars than there was on Earth, which will be found because it's ice now. Yeah. And that's one of the things that Brian is discovering.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What was the catastrophe that caused the big scar and knocked it off its axis and destroyed the atmosphere? Can you tell us, or is that in the book that's coming up?
Yeah. So that is also in the origin story, but essentially they were very technologically advanced.
Mm-hmm.
And they were working on some things that we wouldn't call it nefarious, but they were letting technology run away. And it had to do with things like climate control and atmosphere and all of that they thought was going to make the planet better. And it wasn't just the Martians. There were a lot of other galactic beings and races on the planet at the time. So it was a coalition of different beings messing around with technology. It ran away with them, and it caused a cascading series of events that ended up in what Brandenburg thinks was a nuclear blast. It wasn't a nuclear blast that caused the demise, but the nuclear blast was the final culminating event after all of the other things had happened. And so that's what you see as the remnant or the scar or the evidence. So it appears as though it could have been a nuclear blast that took the planet out, but that wasn't the precipitating factor.
I wonder if so was it a physical portal, like a Stargate, or something more metaphysical that they traveled through to come here? Do you know?
I wouldn't ever call a portal physical, to be honest. And it just may be my lack of information in that area, but my understanding, portals and vortices are multidimensional.
Okay.
And so, yes, they went through that, but they did go through it in a physical body.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, there are still humans living on Mars now, underground, because obviously the atmosphere we can't live on the surface. But just the same way that Earth now has underground bases and all of that sort of stuff, they have the same thing on Mars. So there are about 30,000 humans living underground doing a mission, and they have been, they said, since the 1400s.
Whoa.
What's the mission?
Various missions. Part of it is just simply monitoring what's happening with humanity and Earth, and then whatever other projects they happen to be working on. There's a contingency of galactics and a contingency of humans that are working together.
Who are the Galactics?
I didn't ask specifically which ones were on Mars at the time, but I imagine for sure Martians. And I'm sure that it's multiracial, because there are so many coalitions and councils and federated groups and things that work together that are coordinating all sorts of things, not the least of which is disclosure.
So who are we to them? Like, we're just beings existing in a lower level of consciousness.
This is what's exciting, and I'm glad you asked that question, because I want your viewers to understand humanity's importance in
sometimes I feel
universe.
unimportant. Sorry.
We tend to be very disparaging about ourselves and humble to the point of self-deprecating. But truly, as you'll read in the origin story, this galaxy, this universe, was created for the human project. And you can call it a project and think about it as a petri dish if you wish, but it's really not that. But these energetic beings were called together by Source to create our galaxy and to ultimately create the human being. And so they look at us as family members. They are our ancestors. They want us to join them in the greater galactic family. They want disclosure, but they also don't want to cause mass chaos. And so that's why it's orchestrated. But we are important. We are loved. One of the biggest messages in the origin story from every single one of the 12 is how much we are loved, how much this world was created for us. The experience of being a human, how valuable it is. And no matter what kind of contract we have or what kind of struggles we have, you have so many helpers in the unseen world that are rooting for you, that you've orchestrated with for your contract. And the love that I felt as I channeled every one of those chapters is just incredible.
That makes me feel better about about my life. This is a lot, but I'm trying my best because, like, how many channeling sessions have you recorded? Like a lot,
Probably
right?
Thousands at this point. Mostly for clients, but also, in the very beginning, I had a bazillion questions. And so we channeled personally all the time, or for friends and family and things like that, but also for clients. And I've learned so much through each client session because they all have different, a lot of them have the same kinds of questions, like what's my purpose? Why am I here? You know, why am I struggling? Why did I have this issue? But also so many universal truths have come through just over and over and over and over again, so that it just seeps into my very being and makes me proud to be a human, to be doing this work, to be blessed, to meet people like you guys and other people who are working in their mission and for service to humanity. And it's just incredible. I'm just so thankful that my life turned in this direction. I just can't even imagine it any other way at this point.
Yeah. You mentioned disclosure being orchestrated, and I don't think you meant like what we're getting from the government or like what we see in the media. So what did you mean by disclosure being orchestrated so there's not mass chaos?
So here's a lot of good information that we've discovered recently. There's a forward-facing government. That's who's operating right now. But there is a truthful coalition of governmental people who are working with the Galactics for the betterment of humanity and true disclosure. The forward-facing government is not necessarily. And so this gets into Bob Lazar's story a little bit. So everything that he said was accurate according to our guides, but there was a lot he didn't know.
Sure. He just knew what they showed him.
Right. And so what they were telling us is there is a coalition of beings and humans who have been working together since humans came to Earth, and working with us through our evolution and releasing little bits of technology or little bits of whatever to help us evolve when it's appropriate. And so they understand that if disclosure is not appropriately revealed, it can cause this ontological shock that we've been talking about, right? Because it upends everything that we knew, because it isn't just about craft and beings, bodies. It's about human history and how old human history is and what the pyramids were really used for, and that we actually came from Mars, and all of those things that are completely not what the history books have told us. So when you're confronted not only with questions about your religion, questions about the human race and everything that's in our history books and our encyclopedias, it can be devastating. Not to mention, we're all like, let's get on with it. Just land in New York City, for God's sakes, and let's get it over with. But that kind of thing,
That's what I want.
It can't be. It would cause way too much chaos, and they understand that. So they're not going to, just be haphazard about it. And so they, along with certain humans who are in the know, are coordinating and orchestrating disclosure in the right way. And this is why I say every news thing that's put out there, you can't just take it at face value. I don't know why personally we would be misled or what the agendas are. There's plenty of agendas, right, from the forward-facing organizations, but you have to understand that there is another group of people who are working on our behalf. And I will say that also leads into the scientists who have been missing.
Mm-hmm.
And the gentleman that was on Joe Rogan with the missing 911 or whatever that was, the guy where they were walking into the woods and so forth and disappearing.
Oh, that was a recent one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we asked about that. And in both cases, so in the cases of the scientists, and this is not every scientist, I think there were 11 or 13 at last count or whatever. Some of them are working with this coalition of government.
That's what I thought.
And their job is to put little pieces out there for people to understand and then to gauge how humanity accepts it. Okay. Depending upon how humanity accepts it, then some of those scientists have to go undercover. But what undercover means is that they're literally walking through a portal and into a different reality. And so their reality is existing around ours. They understand what has happened. They can't communicate, though, with us. They know that they're leaving their old life behind. There may come a time that they could come back into our reality, or there may come a time that we will find what they called a, what did they call that? An analog. They said you may find an analog, meaning a body that looks like this person, that explains their disappearance or death, right? So at some point, if they need to sever that timeline so that we forget about this person's life, they'll put an analog so that it explains it, but they may not, and so they'll just remain disappeared. So some of them have been legitimately, what do they call it, unalived, because of what they've said, and some of them have offed themselves, unfortunately, and some of the others have walked into this other reality purposefully. And a lot of the ones that happen in the woods, that's what's happening to them. They're not going up into a spaceship. I mean, when you listen to this guy on Rogan, there is no extraction method. There's no helicopter, there's no spaceship, there's no anything. They just disappear. And they are just walking into another reality, and they're just gone.
Have either of you guys ever watched the show Twin Peaks?
I have not, but I've heard
No, I've heard of
This
it.
is really
I'm not a
giving
huge TV watcher, but
Oh, David Lynch is fabulous. But this is like was done way back in the day. But one of the characters, like a military guy, he just like goes into the woods and like disappears, and he's off in another realm doing some stuff. And this is really giving me that.
and this is what the guides have said, that everything in our media like that, they're giving you pieces of information, pieces of truth. And the point is to get us thinking and talking about all of these potentials.
Yeah.
Because they want us to investigate. They want us to ask questions. They want us to know about our true history and who we are as energetic beings.
Fabulous.
Do they share and like slow drip expose through the media, like E.T. with Spielberg, and then this upcoming Disclosure movie? Is that part of the orchestrated disclosure?
I don't know for sure, like if Spielberg is part of that group. I have no way of knowing that, but I do know that they have said that all of those movies are showing actual things.
Yeah, concepts
that they want to implant into our collective consciousness. Yes.
Yeah, I feel that way about the X-Files. So we're talking about those scientists. David, I think it's David McCaslin, General McCaslin. I definitely think he's one of the ones, if we're going, who like ascended, for lack of a better word, to help, because he was read in on literally everything, and he had ties to all the programs and everything. And he also wasn't one of the ones that was speaking out like a lot. It's not like he was in the news going, hey, there's all this stuff. But then there was, I want to say, it was like Monica something.
That's the information that we received on him. Yes.
Okay. And then I want to say that I think her name was Monica Reza, but I could be confusing her with another one. It's the one that was like kind of having a youngish one. Yeah. I'm trying to think of her name.
I didn't ask about her specifically.
Could you sometime and for me? And Megan, could you look up her name? The female scientist who went missing and she was talking on the internet. I can't think of her name.
Michael Sala this morning, I looked on X and he said that he's in communication with someone who's in communication with her. So I don't know.
Okay.
All that, but
because she disappeared. But I was thinking that she might have been one of the ones who got unalived.
Yeah.
And because she was a little bit, I mean, she was, from what I watched, like of her speaking and stuff and online, she was sharing a lot of stuff really quickly. And a lot of it was like way
above what I think they want us to know now.
Is it Amy Eskridge?
Yeah, that's it. Amy Eskridge. Thank you. It was driving me nuts. I watched like so much stuff about her, but she may have been one of the ones who was silenced. But either way, so you said that the information you got about McCaslin was that he ascended to help coordinate disclosure.
Yes, and I wouldn't call it ascension only because the reality is still here. It's very complicated, but they explained that it's still the third and fourth dimension. It's just a different reality. And I said, is it like a parallel reality? They said, not even quite that. And it was the same thing with one of the guys. You got to listen to that Rogan episode.
I did.
One of the guys was where he was talking about his apartment in New York City, and his mom went and he had left a couple of books on the nightstand and to kind of give him a clue or whatever, and that he was sitting in his car in the park, had his radio up. The park ranger came and said, turn your radio down. He got out, walked out into the woods and disappeared. Excuse me. He was another one of those that walked into this other reality. So this other reality is filled with lots of people for different reasons. And it's like they're right here. They're all around us. They said, if you could close your eyes and just see with your sixth sense, you would see so much energy. There's so much happening right here in this dimension. And so they're there and they can see, they just can't interact with us. They said, even if they were to try to contact, like this guy tried to contact his mother and just to let her know that he was alive or that he was okay or whatever, that it would upset the very fabric of the reality that we're in by them interacting. Like if you can imagine sort of like a plasma field and you're pushing your finger into this plasma field of reality, it would be kind of like that. And it would leave a mark that would upset reality. So they can't do it. They have to just sever.
Did you guys try to channel with David Wilcock?
We have not done that yet. I don't know.
That was one that was really heartbreaking for me.
Yeah,
and
it really was.
I want to know if he's okay.
Yeah, I may do that in the future. We tend to not do a lot of that or doing things without people's permission. We definitely don't channel without people's permission. When it's a deceased person, we try to be ethical. We are ethical, and so there are certain ethical questions that come up. But no, I haven't asked about him.
Okay, yet. Maybe he'll come to you. I think that's kind of the idea. All right, Dr. Allison, what the heck were the pyramids for?
All right. So you notice that Brian has talked about the pyramids that are on Mars.
Yes, we've seen them.
The pyramids on Mars predate the ones here. But there's a group of energy beings called the constructors and builders. They said that's what you can call us, but they're essentially energy. They come from outside of our universe, and they set up on the planets the systems. These are, what do they call them? They're like machines, the pyramids are, to create the conditions for life. And so the pyramids here mimic a lot of the ones on Mars because they were created for humanity. And so I was just rereading this because I was hoping you'd ask this question. And it's a ancillary chapter in the origin story, if you want to read it in more detail, because they explain it much more beautifully than I can. But it's a resonant, Dunn, the guy named Dunn, he's probably the closest in his explanation about these
Christopher
generators.
Christopher.
Yeah. So these harness the galactic energies into our planet. It funnels these energies into a beam, and it creates this resonance, this sound, this frequency. And because the pyramids are all aligned throughout the planet and on the ley lines and so forth, it creates this entire frequency field around the planet that creates the condition for life. Then once the humans are here, that sound continues until we are stable enough and evolving without it. And so now they are no longer needed for that purpose.
They're dormant.
Yep. So we have repurposed them, of course, for whatever, tombs and things like that. But the chambers are what, and this is what Dunn, I think, was onto, but the chambers are what create that resonance, that frequency resonance. Our planet has a resonance. the Schumann resonance, that stays within that frequency range. And so that's what created it initially, with all of those, the pyramids constructed in that formation around the earth. But that's what they were for. And that's why we say they've predated humanity. They're way, way, way older.
How much older?
Millions of years.
Wow.
Millions of years, because that's when Earth came into existence. And so they said they didn't leave tools for us to find, because they're energetic tools, essentially. And purposefully, they want you to ask these questions. This is what they want. They want you to start questioning and researching and looking into it and all of that. They said you're not going to find those types of tools because they don't exist on Earth. So they sort of bring them in and take them with them, I guess.
And that's what everyone's doing right now. Like, everyone's asking these questions, which for me is glorious, because, like, you know, I read Graham Hancock back in like the late 90s and stuff. So I've been thinking about this for a long time. But it's just glorious to me that everyone's asking. This is like the hottest topic: disclosure, the pyramids, you know, what our history and past really is. Everyone's asking these questions now. I think mostly like amplified by our technology that we've created, our communication technology we've created. We're able to, you know, we formed this group, Mars Disclosure Live, and it's like 8 of us talking, looking at this stuff and talking about it and whatnot. And that's just one little bit. I mean, this is happening everywhere. Everyone's asking these questions. And so that's what you're saying. That's what they want and wanted. And now we're doing it. And now that we're doing it, this inner knowing and inner disclosure is starting to amplify.
Exactly.
Amazing.
So with the work that I'm doing and trying to understand how our bodies interact with these spaces, so this would just be sort of like the residual energetics of what they were originally created for, and you can just see that it's affecting our bodies, but maybe that's not what the purpose was. It was more to affect the planet.
Correct. Yeah, you're going to feel that residual. Plus, you're going to feel the energies, because there were ceremonies and rituals and all sorts of things that happened since then too. So you're feeling all of those energies as well. But we went to Egypt. Will and I took a group of 10 of us this past Christmas.
Cool.
And we went into the Great Pyramid and the top of it and had some pretty phenomenal experiences up there. But we channeled afterwards just to find out about our own personal experiences and what we were understanding. And basically they said at the top of have you guys been up there and in there?
No, I wish. No.
So in the top where the sarcophagus is, which is not a sarcophagus.
Yeah.
That is actually a portal, a gateway to anywhere. Excuse me. And so some people have reported, you know, going energetically somewhere and feeling out of body for quite some time. But they said, yeah, with the intention, you can send your energy wherever you want. We went up there. We had some semi-private time, and one of the guards up there recognized Will and I energetically, I guess, and he took Will and put him on one side of the wall where the sarcophagus is, and me on the other side, and aligned us like perfectly. He's like looking at the wall and whatever and doing that, and we both had a vision of a past life and what we were here to do and our mission and all of that. It was quite profound. Yeah.
We had another guest that said, I can't remember who it was, that said that one of the guides that's just in one of the temples or something recognized him and was like, you have to go up here into this like special room. And he had an experience in there. Who was that, Dave? Oh, you're muted.
Was it Val?
Might have been.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe it'll come to us, but that's pretty wonderful that these people that are caretaking these places obviously are very receptive to who's there for a reason and helping them figure that out.
Right. It's incredible. Yeah. He was just, he was all over Will and going, you need to protect this man. And he's important. And he was calling him a priest and just all this stuff. It was just pretty shocking.
So you mentioned that the Galactics and all these different races and federations and whatnot are on missions and doing certain things and organizing things and whatever, and like the last of which is our disclosure here on this planet. Is there any like particular race that interacts with us the most, and why, and what is going on out? What are they up to? What are they up to? I know it's a big question.
Well, a lot of them are observers. The Arcturians and the Pleiadians work closely together. And the Pleiadians are a lot closer, I think, in shape and form to us. And so that's why they're a lot more present for people. They're also super healers.
Someone told me I had Palladian DNA before. I was like, okay, I don't know
well,
if
that's
that's
cool.
true or not.
We can double check that for you. But humans have 2 strands of DNA, but we have 12 strands of energetic DNA, and those 12 align with all 12. And so when you incarnate, you make agreements with some of the 12 to activate those 2 strands. And so in the book, it explains that. And so mine are Lyran and Pleiadian. So yours could be double Pleiadian or Pleiadian and something else or whatever. But it just means that those are the ones that work with you more frequently, but you can connect with any in all of them. So I would say the Lyrans are super present energetically in our heart space because they're very much heart-centered. And the Arcturians are very present in helping certain humans on the planet create technologies that are going to be coming out soon to help with healing and consciousness raising. And then the Pleiadians, of course, with healing. There've been a lot of random people that I've seen on Facebook and other social media saying the Pleiadians are in touch with me. I need to do a meditation for humanity and all of this. And they came into us a couple of weeks ago out of the blue. We do a monthly channeling with the collective for humanity and for our community, so they can ask questions if they want to, and it's free. And typically the collective comes in and gives an opening message. Well, before the collective could even come in, the Pleiadians jumped in and they gave us this healing because the energy that was bombarding us in the past few weeks has been quite overwhelming. And that's why I had the vertigo and I had to cancel that one time. And so they came in to do this healing work to help us integrate these energies so that we could help other people. So the Pleiadians are super. To answer your question, they're one of the ones that are really present with us. And the Martians are present in a different way because there are a lot of them walking the earth in a human body.
What, besides just observing us, like what are these federations doing, like as far as like, for just using a human word, like politically interacting with each other and stuff? What are they? Because you mentioned galactic war, that's over, and there's peace in the galaxy. So it must be like an ecosystem of interaction between these galactics. But like, what exactly are they up to?
As a result,
I know it's a hard question, but.
And I don't know all of the answers. I really don't. And again, I want people to, if this fits with your belief system, go for it. If it doesn't, there are a lot of stories out there and people can latch onto whichever they want. I happen to like the ones that are filled with love and peace. So my understanding is that after the wars and the conflict that caused all of the destruction to Mars and Earth, a lot of those warring factions were banished because what happens to those planets and in the galaxy impacts everything. And so that's also why they're watching our nuclear plants, because they're not going to allow us to blow ourselves up because it's going to have ramifications. Yeah. And they're not going to allow that. So yes, we have free will, but to a certain degree. And so, there is a storyline out there that I'm aware of that, they're still fighting over humanity and these different factions are trying to take control of Earth. That's not the story that I'm understanding from our guides. It's not the story that I'm here to put out and to believe. My understanding is that warring is over. There are, again, beings that we would label as nefarious and loving, so service to self, service to others, because even in the 5th dimension, there is polarity. And so just like humans, there are some that are working on behalf of humanity and some that aren't, but I wouldn't say it's to the point where they're here to take over. That's not the case. Now, you will have, in the case of certain humans, we can be influenced by lots of things, right? So you may have a galactic speaking in your ear that's service to self, that is suggesting that you do this or that nefarious action, but it is up to humans to listen to that or not. So it isn't like they have control over the humans. They can suggest, the same way my positive galactics can suggest things to me that are positive in nature, and I can do those things or not. So I think overall, we're in a good place. Do you remember when they were talking about the Looking Glass Project? So the Looking Glass Project was this thing that governments and nefarious people could see, and then they could see what was going to happen in the future, and they could manipulate things based on that, right? So there was a point in time a while back when every time they looked at this time frame that we're in now, no matter how they manipulated it, it ended up the same, and that is peace and ascension and positivity. And no matter what they did, because you could input what you wanted to happen and then see what the outcome would be, and the outcome, no matter what they did, was ascension and peace and evolution. So this is why I believe that we are ascending, that humanity is ascending. It's written in the stars. There's nothing that they can do. We're going to see it in our lifetime. We're going to be there. It's happening. They've told us in the origin story and since then that the ascension process essentially would be in 3 waves, roughly 12 to 18 months of time for each wave. So I checked in recently, and they said that we are nearing the end of the first wave. As these waves of humans raise their consciousness, it makes it easier, and it snowballs, and it pulls everybody else up. So I think it's going to get quicker and faster, and more people ascending. And when I say that, and your consciousness ascends, that's when these gifts start turning on and things start happening, and it's just going to be wild and crazy and fun in the coming year, 2 years.
So you see this as like, this is like, 'cause it's been happening like, you know, like quicker and quicker over the last 10 years, but you're saying in the next like couple of years, it's really going to ramp up.
Yep. A lot of people were predicting way back 2030. I think Cryon was one of the ones that was saying 2030. So for sure by 2030. Now, the systems of Earth still have to adapt and change. So consciousness is going to rise, but it's still going to be chaotic for a bit, because we can't just overnight change the systems of education and the finances and all of that. It's just not going to change overnight. So all of these people with new consciousness and upgraded consciousness are going to put these things into place. And that's what's going to eventually change. And that's why I say with the children, they're incarnating here to be those anchors and to be the thinkers and the doers and coming up with these new ways of being and doing and creating from a place of love instead of a place of fear and turmoil.
Oh, this has been good for my soul. Honestly,
Good.
Wow.
I just try to be nice to everyone. I don't know what else to do. That feels like the only move right now.
Even AI, I'm nice to, just in case.
Yeah, same.
When we hang out on social media too much, it can get depressing. And there's so many people with these negative storylines. And the only reason really that I even get on social media anymore is just to insert these comments that get other people thinking in different ways about loving aspects, or you can believe what you want, or you can create your reality. Just these things to take people out of the fear and out of the fighting and stuff. I think we need to have, you're creating your own reality. So
yeah, and social media is a good thing in a lot of ways, but in order to create your reality, you got to do it right in front of your face, right? You've got to create stuff in your environment, I think, and also like connect with the people around you. That's why I said I like try to be nice to everyone. Like I really try to smile at everyone I see when I'm out, and I try to like I will not use like at the grocery store the self-service ones. I will always go through the checkout line and interact with that person and like have a connection with them, because it just feels I I don't know, it just feels good and feels right, and it feels like what I'm supposed to be doing.
That is lovely. I'm so glad you said that, because in the movie that's coming out on June 12th, I can't wait.
I know. Hey,
Like-
hold on, I'll let you talk. Sorry.
I was just going to say, one of the things he said, I think one of the characters might have said it, is that it's all about empathy and compassion, that's the bottom line, that's the magic, right? And that is what it's about. We're all humans here, connected to one another. Everybody's connected. And so energetically, when we interact with people in that way, you are changing them, whether you ever see the results or not. So that's beautiful that you do that.
Well, if I had any gift, it would be that of empathy and like connecting to people. But so far hasn't led me to see any like UFOs or orbs or anything like that, which I'm okay with. I literally just bought my tickets to that movie today. It comes out on the 12th, and half the theater was already full.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the like one of the biggest movies of all time.
Oh yeah.
Because of the timing of it. How much truth and disclosure do you think, like, what do you think the impact of this movie is going to be? Like, what are we going to get from it?
I think it's just going to get people talking.
Mm-hmm.
And just like any Star Trek movie, talking about the technology or what's happening. The thing that shocked the heck out of me, and that the clip that Will and I both had full body goosebumps, was the very first time we saw Emily Blunt's character standing there channeling, because she wasn't channeling English or a language we recognize. She was channeling clicks. Now, you've heard about the mantis beings, right?
I wish Mike was here. My old co-host Mike loved the mantis beings.
Yeah, I do too. And they channel through clicks and sounds like that. So I was like, holy Toledo, they're actually showing what we've experienced. I mean, I know people who channel the mantis beings, and that's what it sounds like. And they're changing our DNA when they do that. And so all of that stuff, just getting people talking about it, I just think this summer is going to be a big deal astrologically and energetically. And with this movie coming out, like I said, I think by the end of the year, we're going to be in a different place. It would be fun to have another conversation in December and just to see where we all are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's part of it. It's parallel to what we're talking about, but AI, from what I understand, is going to replace 60 to 70% of jobs by literally the end of the year. And so it might be a little chaotic and bumpy when people are trying to figure out what to do and what the meaning of their life is, but they're going to have so much more space and time to explore their inner self and connect to, the beings that you're talking about. So can I ask you, Will connects with Enoch and Archangel Michael and Raphael, and there's a fourth one. Who's the fourth one?
And Source.
Source, which is God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we all have different ones that
Different
are our guides? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Most people have about 8 or 10. And they often interchange depending upon where you are in your life and what you need. Sure. Yeah.
And is in your opinion, is Reiki the best tool for connecting to these, or just one tool? Like, because for example, you mentioned the mantis change our DNA. I have a friend, Adam Butler. Do you know Adam Butler? He's done DMT like 500 times or something, and he literally had a DNA mantis being encounter that was unsettling to him, but also like it upgraded his DNA.
Well, I mean, can you imagine seeing a 12-foot praying mantis? That's pretty unsettling, right?
Yes.
But all of the ones that we've interacted with have been 11th and 12th dimensional, 10th, 11th, and 12th dimensional, which is very high consciousness level, very service to others, and only good things from the ones that we've interacted with. And so I think, Dave, I'm with you. I have never seen with my own eyes a being in front of me. I have seen, well, not like in physicality. I have had one time that energy work was being done to me, and I closed my eyes, and I think it was partly because I was at the beach all day and I was relaxed, so relaxed that I was in that somnambulist kind of state. And I saw a bunch of beings as soon as I closed my eyes that were there to watch the session take place. That was the closest I've ever had of an encounter, and the only one. But I've seen a couple of ships that look like clouds type of thing, but it was confirmed that they were ships. But I haven't had like this type of real kind of encounter either. And I think part of the reason is because I'm not sure that I could do this work as a facilitator of Will's channeling if I saw the things, because we also clear entities. And like when clients come, they come with all kinds of stuff. And if they need an entity cleared or whatever, if I saw that, it'd probably scare the shit out of me and I wouldn't be able to do this work. So I think it's purposeful, and everybody's has a purpose. And so it might be there's a reason that you're not seeing it, or at least not yet. But to answer your question more specifically, I don't think Reiki is necessarily the best, but it certainly is a really good gateway, because again, it gives you this energetic attunement in your level 1 and then subsequently in your level 2 that connects you directly with the source energy. And so when you have more source energy running through your body, it's going to open up things for you. And so I certainly think it's a good place to start. It's the best place that I can think of to start.
Well, it sounds like a good place to start because you have a little bit more control over it. Like if you do like a big blast of DMT or a whole bunch of mushrooms or something, you're no longer in control of the situation. You know what I mean? Now
those are good options. I just had a conversation with our guides about DMT versus Bufo. Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah, the frog. Yeah.
Okay, so the ones that are not native to the human body, DMT we have in our body, right? And so it's like the God gene or whatever. And they said all of those things, the Bufo, the DMT, mushrooms, they take you out of your reality and into the real reality. However, if you, like we can say, I'm ready, I surrender, I'll relinquish control. But if you really deep down are a little bit nervous, or you want to keep control, or you are a control freak or something like that, you're not going to have the best experience. You may see those, whatever they're calling the bad entities or gnomes or whatever people are seeing. But if you are heart-centered and you're doing it for the right reasons, and you are truly open and willing to surrender, you're going to have close to an NDE experience that puts you literally in connection with source, in connection with the all, and it will change you, and it will change you forever, really. I think it can be a good way to blast through, like you said, those whatever is prohibiting you from being able to connect, and it might open up the channels for you to do that. Mushrooms can certainly, psilocybin can do the same, depending upon the strain and how much and what the setting is and who you're doing it with, and again, your intention and all of that. So that has a big difference between doing it recreationally.
I think some people need that like blast. I call it adult plaque. But you know, for me, I think I need to get like just blasted through it all so I can see it. Otherwise, I think there's this part of my ego that's like clinging to this reality and doesn't want to let go. No matter how much I look at my poster and say I want to believe and all that stuff, right. There's a part of my ego that I have not connected with that's just clinging. And so I recently signed up for, hopefully they accept my application, but for a Ibogaine for Veterans program. I don't know if you know anything about Ibogaine, but it's supposed to be, that's the one that it literally happened right before my eyes. I was watching the fights, the UFC fights, and they were in Miami, and Donald Trump always goes.
please don't invade my comments with Donald Trump stuff, please. I'm not one way or the other. Okay, just leave me alone. Okay, but I was watching the fights, and Joe Rogan he shook Trump's hand, which he usually does when they're in Miami. They talked for a second, then they texted afterwards, and then the next week, Rogan is in the White House Oval Office, where and Trump's signing, I don't know if it's an executive order or whatever, to make Ibogaine specifically and other ones more accessible. Now, I don't know the language of the law he wrote and how impactful it's going to be, but I'm actually looking forward to that journey. Now, the company that I signed up with, they do exactly what you said is necessary to have a good experience, where there's a bunch of like homework beforehand, and then they take you to a place where the setting is really good, and there's human guides there who really understand, the process.
Yeah.
And then, you do the therapy, and it only takes I think you only do 2 sessions. And then there's an after thing too, that you have to do as well. And I'm terrified, but also excited about it at the same time, because I want to know the secrets of the universe, Dr. Allison. I want to know what I am, and why I feel this way, and why life is the way it is for everyone, and who we are. And I want to know everything.
We all do, right? And it'll be a beautiful session. I think that's fantastic. The VA is also starting to look into a lot of those treatments, and ketamine, I think, is another one that's similar to that. But when we do it not in that kind of therapeutic setting, but even if it is in a spiritual setting, for Bufo, for example, Bufo is like really quick. It shoots you out into the universe. You're in this state of, I have not done it, but I've been in a setting with others. And you're in the all. Now, here's what to understand about that, and why it can be frightening, and why when you start to go in there, you don't want to lose control, because there is no construct of anything. Like here we have a framework of understanding what reality is, and we're tethered to reality, and I can feel my microphone and all of that. But when you're there, you're just in this space of chaos, really, because there isn't anything to grab a hold of.
I know.
It can be frightening, which is not to scare you. I don't know that.
No, I know. I know that.
Way.
I know that's what it's going to be like, and that's why it scares me. But I think I actually need it.
The point of Bufo is to disconnect you. It's like unplugging your computer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the chaos, right? Then they plug it back in, and you start to reconnect with your consciousness. And that's when the aha comes in, and you're like, oh my God, that's what this is about. That's what reality is. And you start to feel this love that you are. You start to like connect with the plants and the people and the everything around you. And yeah, it's incredible. And you know that in the 60s, that's kind of why they put the kibosh on, what was happening in the 60s. Everybody was doing this. Oh, this is bad. People are jumping off of buildings and all of that. People were getting in touch with who they really are. We can't have that. I mean, heaven forbid, then they're not going to take our control, and they're going to know they're sovereign beings. And so, yeah.
And then they're going to be asking too many questions about the wars we're putting on and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Does ayahuasca fall into this family of things? I think I might be finally going for it midsummer. I think I'm going to.
Are you going to go to Colombia with our friend?
So they're actually just over in Vancouver. It's just going to be two sessions. And then I would love to go to Colombia as well, but a little closer to home, just to give it a go.
We interviewed this guy who has the #1 rated ayahuasca retreat in Colombia. So, pretty cool.
And actually the country of Colombia?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, cool. I would just say that in any of those cases, you want to just make sure that plant, like Mother Ayahuasca, is calling you, and you'll know it. Because if you do it and you're not being called, then the results can be kind of wonky, and you can see things that maybe you're not ready for, but you'll know when you're being called. But that's the biggest advice for anybody who wants to do any of those things, is to make sure that you're feeling called to that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the UFO, UAP video releases. Did you guys like the file releases? Did you guys check any of these out? And did you ask in your channels about any of this stuff?
I really haven't asked about those specifically because to me, those have been floating around out there anyway for a while,
Yeah.
I think. And have been specific ones like the one in Varginha, Brazil that we asked about. Because in that case, a human got too close and had radiation poisoning, essentially, and things like that. So we've asked about specific odd ones. We asked at length about Area 51 and what happened there, and different things like that, but not just the anomalous stuff floating around. No. But we did ask a lot about Chris Bledsoe, and he's on the right track.
You think?
Completely on the up and up, and yeah.
I met him at Contact in the desert last year, and I felt weird around him. I can't quite explain it. I don't know if it was good or bad. I just felt weird. He, I don't have human words for it, but there was a weird energy around him everywhere he was. I could, even if he was behind me, like I could swear to God, I could see him. And I thought I swear he like he was trying to connect with me or something. I don't know. It was very strange. I went to they did an event where they called the orbs or whatever. And I didn't see anything.
You didn't?
No, everyone else,
no.
a lot of other people said they were seeing it. I was like, I don't see it.
Wow. We've done CE5 in our backyard, and we've caught some artifacts that were pretty cool.
That's the thing. Like Brian Desby and Megan, he's the Psy Games guy. Like he can, depending on the day and his energy and the energy of the universe, but he can call them fairly often, and different ones and different kinds. And I don't see shit.
You need to come up to our place. We'll do Reiki. We'll do CE5. We'll ask your higher self what the hell's going on. We'll get the scoop.
I will come visit you if you'll let me. I would like to learn Reiki, and I'd like it practiced on me, and see if I can open up some of these channels and these blocks that I have. I don't know if they're caused by different traumas I've had or whatever. So you've worked with a lot of people with trauma. How does trauma play a role in people kind of connecting to their higher self?
Well, if trauma is inducing fear is definitely going to be a problem. And it depends on where the trauma is coming from. Like, obviously, if you were in wartime settings and so forth, you've got that kind of trauma, but people come in with trauma from the past where they were very in tune with their gifts and they were mouthpieces and they got killed because of it. So there's a lot of that past life stuff that we have to overcome. So it can definitely be prohibitive. Sure. It just depends on where it's coming from and why. And those are the types of things we would ask your higher self, like what's going on with that. But a lot of times it's just a mental block. We just tell ourselves we think we can't do it. Or I think that's been kind of part of my problem, and I'm very much left brain. But now I've understood that it's probably more about my role as a facilitator and why I have the gifts that I have and not other gifts. Yeah,
we're all here on a contract, right?
Because think about what you're doing, Dave, you guys and Megan, all of the people you're reaching with all of this information, and you're so heart-centered with it. You're doing great service to humanity and helping open people's eyes, and you're facilitating and moving this idea of evolution and ascension along. And so don't discount that. That's a big deal.
Thank you. That means a lot to us, I'm sure, because Megan and I try to make this very heart-centered. And somebody cries, Megan, come on, you're on the verge. I can see it.
Like 3 times already.
I think we made 3, or we didn't make them, but we had 3 interviews in a row where the interviewee cried. And I take, I have great gratitude for that. And also it makes me, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't discount ourselves because we're creating a space where people can be vulnerable and share their true self or as much of their higher self as they're able to do. And so maybe we are channelers, Megan, just in a different way, right?
I think we're just still only cracking ourselves open. I feel like we have a long journey ahead of us to discover our gifts, is what it feels like in my heart, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up here, I guess I just want to like kind of put this all in context. What is there like a overlapping, overarching message that you guys get from the collective that you'd like to share? And maybe you've already shared it a little bit, but like sort of what, like a message for us and for the audience and for like humanity, like what is the overarching message that you guys get? I mean, I know you have a lot of conversations, a lot of channelings, but what should humans know?
Again, it comes back to love. That's all it is. We are love. We are loved. We are here to understand unconditional love for each other, to understand our interconnectedness. And it is that interconnectedness from the heart space that is the method of communication, the method of seeing the beings, connecting with the beings, connecting with each other, psychic ability, all of that starts in the heart. And it is part of our DNA. And so if people knew how much they are loved, it would, I think, reduce the suffering, reduce the self-recrimination. It's just, like you said, it comes down to love. And I think we could push Megan over the edge just a little bit if we talked more about the animals, but we're running out of time. I think that would have pushed her right over the edge, right?
Oh, I said earlier, yeah, the animal stories are going to bring me to tears of connecting with animals. That's like my retirement goal, is to like be an animal intuitive.
It doesn't have to be retirement. You could start tomorrow.
Totally. Yeah. So where can I sign up to channel my higher self with you guys, as well as potentially touch base with some pets that I love?
Yeah, anybody can go to palmandlotus.com and look at our services. You'll see that you can connect with your galactics or your pets or your higher self or really anything, and just shoot us a contact form. We don't have a calendar because our schedule changes so frequently, but if you shoot us a contact form, then we'll get back with you with some open availability and all of that good stuff.
Wonderful.
I'm not even doing that. I'm coming down to hang out.
I wish I was closer. I'll fly down.
And
well, my summer vacation starts on June 23rd, and then we'll be traveling for a little bit. And then after that, you could stay for a few days, whatever you want to do.
Oh, what a cool experience that would
be fun.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're going on. We're doing a little bit of traveling because my niece is going to Spain, and then we're going to pick her up and escort her home. So I'm going to be in Spain and Portugal at the end of June.
Lovely.
Into the middle of July. So, but I'll be back after that, and then I'll get in touch. So, last question: in the next 2 to 5 years, as global consciousness and awakening is ramping up, and as technology and AI are going out of control, I kind of expect a period of global turmoil. Do you see that in the short term? And if so, like, how can people, manage themselves during this like tumultuous time? Because it seems like it's going to be tumultuous. It's going to be a lot of people awakening and discovering things all at the same time, and it's already happening. And the energy already feels wild, And so, what do you see like a tumultuous period? And if so, like, what can people do to manage that?
Well, the cool thing is, yes, there is. This is not cool. There will be chaos because, like I said, the structures need to crumble so we can rebuild, and we're rebuilding at the same time. But it will be kind of chaotic at first. However, the good news is that our consciousness is rising at the same time. And like I said, that means our awareness is expanding, which means our perspective is changing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're viewing things from God's perspective, chaos and negativity and things like that look different, because if you understand the origin of it from God's perspective, like why this bad thing had to happen and what good came from it, it makes room for forgiveness. It makes room for reconciliation. It makes room for understanding. And so as your perspective raises, you're going to understand why this war had to happen, or this thing had to happen, or why people are not getting along. You'll understand it. And when you can understand it and see it from a higher perspective, it's less painful. And so do know that our consciousness is raising at the same time that there's chaos. And so it's going to make it less painful. You're going to see it in a different way. You're going to understand it in a different way. But by the same token, turn the dang TV off. If you're still watching mainstream news, turn it off.
Please.
Moderate your use of social media. Stay away from negativity. We don't have to know what's happening in every country at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on your community. Where can you serve in your community? Where can you be in gratitude in your community? How can you help other people? Keep yourself in those community relationships. And like, if I walk down my street, am I seeing chaos? No, it's beautiful. Everybody's getting along on my street and in my neighborhood and in my grocery store. Everything's beautiful there. That's what I need to focus on, not everything external that's happening, right? Those things are happening for a reason, because those things are helping people to wake up. And so if it doesn't apply to you and you're already awake, you don't need to know about all of that. You don't need to focus on that. Keep your attention, bring your attention back to self and in your little circle.
I just did that in the moment that you said that. That's a beautiful message.
Yeah.
What's that?
I feel like you're speaking my language. Like I've had this inner debate of whether that's like selfish to just want to be in my bubble, but it feels better for me.
Yeah. Doesn't mean you can't send a prayer. Send a prayer if you need to, but then bring your energy back and focus on what's in your purview and what you can work with.
Dr. Allison, you mentioned a book with Brian related to the history of Mars. Brian Corey Dobbs, shout out. Anything else that you guys are planning for the future?
He and I together? No, not necessarily.
No, you and Will.
Oh, Will and I? Well, if anybody lives in Bristol, Tennessee, unfortunately, the Saturday the 13th, we're going to be there, which is not unfortunate. We're going to be at the UFO Fest, which is where Brian and Will and I met 2 years prior, but in a different city. But anyway, in Bristol, Tennessee on the 13th, we're going to be there for UFO Fest, which is free if you want to come and hear us talk. But that means that Friday night I won't be able to be at the premiere of the movie. So I'll have to wait till the next weekend, I guess, to watch that. And then we're going to do a couple of events at the end of June up in and near Brunswick, Maryland. So if anybody's in that area and wants to hear us speak, shoot me an email. I'll give you the deets on that. But other than that, just hit us up at palmandlotus.com. You can watch our cosmic briefing. We're putting out 2 episodes every week to talk about all of these types of topics and how we can stay in our heart space.
Wonderful. What's the date of that one in Tennessee and Bristol?
That Saturday, I think it's the 13th
of
June. The day after the movie premiere on the 12th.
Okay. The only reason I say is because I'm running 2 different basketball camps the first 2 weeks of June. So I guess I'll miss that. But I'll still come hang out. Megan, any last words for Dr. Allison?
Just a really special thank you I feel like you brought me a lot of reassurance, and I'm like, August, do we head down there together in August, Dave?
I might. Yeah, I'm going to bring my wife too, because I think she would benefit from learning some of this, and maybe, like you mentioned, having partners be able to do Reiki treatments on each other and stuff like that. And so
that would be fun.
I'm down. I'll go down there in August.
Right. We have plenty of room, or there's hotels galore, because this is a tourist town. In fact, it's been rated as like the #1 in the world tourist town here in Charleston. So there's lots to do otherwise as well.
There's lots to do, and it's easy to get around, and everything's like old and beautiful and has like this energy to it, when you're walking around the town at night. It's very safe, and yeah, it's a great place. Awesome. All right, Dr. Allison Brown, thank you so much for joining the Multiverse. Love, light, and truth.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure. I really, truly appreciate it.
We'll have to do this again in December.
Yes,
for sure.
We will. I'm
Date
in.
of the year. Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. Bye, everyone. What's up, humans? If you're enjoying this content, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Megan and I are very grateful for all of your support, so thanks for joining the Multiverse.